discipline was citizen journalism, where I would show up to events, meetings, and actions and live stream. And I would recognize that, you know, when I went to city council meetings or county commission or school board meetings, couple hundred people would tune in. And so that told me that there was a desire for people, even if they didn't quite understand what was going on, to be part, to ask questions, you know, to try to influence and be part of the work. So I've been trying to find more ways to disseminate those facts, disseminate that information, because that's what we are in government. We are a repository of lots of information, and information that citizens should see as a tool, you know, to utilize to create the type of neighborhood, home, city that they want. So I think it's our duty to find ways, not just to say, hey, go check it on this website, or here's a bunch of paperwork, or go set a meeting. How can we package this information in an effective manner to help you answer these questions and guide it, so that it makes sense from a grade schooler to, you know, an engineer, if it's needed like that. So that's kind of how I've been trying to approach it internally. And also just encouraging people, especially organizations and organized groups like yourself, to take part, to just show up and just ask. I give you my email address, my social media. Just ask, and be persistent if you don't get it on the first time, and just keep utilizing this tool.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's great advice. Our next question is from Alexis, number 6.
Okay. With root causes that lead to homelessness, human trafficking, and food insecurity to be one of the many problems in our city, what should I personally, or us as an organization, tell people who say something along the lines of all big cities that are Democratic led have the worst rates of poverty and homelessness?
What should you tell? Well, first of all, there's nowhere in America that doesn't have a poverty problem, that doesn't have racialized problems. Like, you know, if you look at one of the biggest divides here in North Carolina is not the red, blue, or partisan divide. You know, it's the urban-rural divide. And if you look at the issues of the digital divide, man, I mean, the chasm is so wide in the rural populations. When we think about the effect that has on our farmers, you know, and agriculture, to try to stay competitive with different parts of the country and all around the world, we are behind. When you look at the ability to access healthcare, rural hospital systems are crumbling. There are entire counties that don't have hospital systems. That's why Mecklenburg County, specifically on COVID, that's part of the reason why our numbers in Mecklenburg are high, is because, you know, our hospital system supports so many of the surrounding counties. You know, I mean, when you talk about food deserts, you know, those things exist. You know, as we talked about, you can see this. Yes, Charlotte is a very segregated city, and it's in that same crescent in the wedge. But food deserts in some of these rural parts, you know, of our state are incredible. You know, you just again need to tell people, you know, like let's have conversations on fact. Let's have conversations on fact. Let's have conversations on fact. This is not, there's some issues that are not, honestly, shouldn't be political, you know, that there are Republicans and Democrats that are suffering. There are Republicans and Democrats that have not been able to solve these issues. Police brutality and happens in urban places, in rural places, in Republican-led places, in Democratic places, in places where Black people in charge or Black people have never been in charge, you know. These are American issues. And if you look at every point in time in history, wherever you are, these are issues that are endemic, not around the world, not anywhere else, but in America. So, at some point in time, honestly, if you ever look at my social media, I just don't participate. If we want to have conversations of fact, sure, I'm not going to feed trolls. Good day to you, sir. Good day to you, man. But I got too much work to do. I don't really know. I don't know if I answered the question, but honestly, I don't got no time for the bullshit. I'll be completely honest with you. If you want to write an academic paper, analyzing geopolitical, I don't know, phenomena, in Southeastern America, sure. But again, that's not governing. That's not governing. Ed Driggs is the representative from District 7, and he and I don't see eye to eye on a lot of things, right? And personally, we have had our run-ins, but when we need to talk about things, when there are things that I need to make sure that my colleagues are hearing, if I can level with Ed Driggs, if he and I can find some common ground, which we often do, then that means that we can get something good going, and that means I can get this other Black Democrat, to buy into. So that's what it's about, in my humble opinion.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great message, and some people very high up in the government, maybe federally, could definitely take a note. Our next question is from Michelle. All right, I'm going to go ahead and ask it. So what has the City Council done to prevent hate crimes in the midst of protests and increase hate speech against Asian Americans and Black Americans?
Well, one thing I will say, government does not prevent crime. I mean, we just don't. I mean, that is a social, part of it is social. I mean, there are things that we can do existential, and I talked about it, economic development. We can create better neighborhoods, desegregate things. When people are hungry, if they got to feed their family, they're going to find a way to do that. But in terms of, this is one of the things I say about law enforcement, right? Law enforcement, their job actually happens once a crime is suspected of happening. And you ask a question, you deliver, you collect evidence, and you deliver the question to the judicial system, a judge and a jury, because the Constitution says that's the only branch of government that can determine even whether or not a crime has occurred, and therefore determine what the punishment is. So municipal government, to me directly doesn't prevent crime, but there are things that we can do to create the conditions that make that less likely. And that is kind of what we're trying to do with the public health approach, to find what are the prescriptive places? Are there hate crimes, right, that are happening in certain groups in certain areas? What kind of prescriptions do we need to insert in that area? But I will say that, the reason why I love my job specific, that I do play a different role than other parts of my organization. I am a representative. I'm an elected representative. And yes, there are hard policy and legal obligations that I have, but part of our role is to be an example, right? Is to be an example for what the city wants, the type of citizen that the city wants to be. So one of the things I personally do, I do try to go, and then it's one of the reasons why I run at large. I don't never ever want it to be told that there isn't a place that I can or can't go, or an issue that I can't be part of. So I try to go into places that sometimes people don't think I should be or I would want to be in. And I don't necessarily try to make people believe me, but I think there's an opportunity to find common ground. And when you're able to find common ground, you're able to take a lot of pressure out of a lot of situations. And when you depressurize people and you depressurize situations, you know, you have a more beloved community. That doesn't mean everybody is always going to get along, or doesn't mean you're going to like me in the end. But you can respect me and we can respect each other. So that's how I like to go about it. And I hope that that is seen. And as you said, I hope that, you know, we can set a different example on the local level than what is being seen on the federal or even on the state level. Again, part of the reason why I'm trying to find this intergovernmental approach, not just from the Republican Democrat perspective, not just from the different level of governments strictly because of government function, but, you know, how do we go out into Union County, you know, or Iredell County, or even just the other of Matthews and Mint Hill, you know, from a Charlotte perspective, and have grounded conversations that strengthen our bonds, you know, without compromising our values.
Thank you. And that, again, there are a lot of politicians who go in very strong-armed. They're not willing to listen to others. So it's a great example. Our next question is from Alexis.
Muted.
You're on mute.
I see. So what is the city council doing to address the issues of homelessness and human trafficking that we see in Charlotte? I mean, like you mentioned previously, there's the motel issue. So what is the city council doing to directly fix those issues?
Well, for homelessness, we really do. Again, this is, you might have heard this coming. This is a layup from what I said earlier. We rely on a lot of our partners. So homeless services is directly under the county. So we try to sit in a strong passenger seat. But obviously we have the issue of the tent camps that are growing because of COVID. We put a lot of money into those efforts that are being led by the county and our partners. You might have seen, if you look at the organization Roof Above, we are trying new innovative approaches to how we invest our development dollars around housing. So we gave about $5 million to a deal to help facilitate a $50 million deal that is going to preserve, I think, either 271 or 371 apartments for about 30 years of affordability on the east side. But there's also going to be a significant portion of those units that are going to be what is called transitional housing, that Roof Above is going to provide social services to those folks in there that help them transition from homelessness into independent living situations and jobs and whatever recoveries that are needed there. But again, like I said, I'm trying for us to do more. You know, as and specifically around the trafficking. As we approach this from a public health approach, we know that we need different tools, right? When we look at I-85 and Sugar Creek, that's a hot spot for a lot of different crime, including sex work and sex work crimes that are going on there. And again, we've put a ton of money into policing, but that's not solving the problem, because again, you know, when you're dealing with police, you have to deal with the system. And people can move around the system, especially, you know, people whose profession it is to, you know, move around the system. pimps, pimps and traffickers, so we need a different approach in these areas. And this is, again, part of the public health modeled approach is how do we find more prescriptive ideas? So I am trying to push us to be more radical, though. Like, honestly, if it was up to me, I'll buy up the entirety of I-85, and Sugar Creek. Every single one of those motels, I make them an offer and say, take this money and run, no questions asked. And then we have the land and we can figure out how to do something massive around that. That's my humble opinion. I know there are other people that are doing that too. Greg Jackson, Heal Charlotte is in the process of fundraising millions of dollars to do that on one of those sites up there. Heal Charlotte is a great organization. I think you should look at, especially being in this part of town. Sometimes, regardless of who you are, if you're Black, white, Asian, if you live in a certain part of town, some people just not think that you're plugged in just because of where you're from. But we know that's not the case. So, and we also know that these are, for instance, issues that don't just happen on I-85 and Sugar Creek. Trafficking is something that, happens everywhere. And, honestly, it might happen a whole lot in D7, and in high schools and things like that. But you don't hear about it because families are in different positions to deal with things in different types of ways. So, we need your input, again, people that are proximate to the problems to help us be proximate to the solutions.
Thank you for your answer. Our next question is from Michelle.
Hi, so just to kind of describe what's happening, the BYA also partnered with 2 Sunrise organizations, so the next few questions are mostly focused on climate action. The first one is, what are your plans for shrinking Charlotte's carbon footprint and relying less on fossil fuels and harmful energy sources?
Well, I think this commitment to renewables, again, the number one thing that we can do from a city perspective is our fleet is immense and our buildings are immense. As we're committing to that, one of the things, for instance, I can continue to do is pay attention to my votes. So a Monday night, last night, one of the business items was voting on, we purchased natural gas powered sanitation trucks. Might be theoretically better than what we have, but in my opinion, natural gas is not a sustainable solution. In some ways it can be seen as dirtier because of the production. So I voted no on it and I made sure that I said it. Again, this idea of following through, right? Not just saying, hey, I passed a CF, I'm good enough. You need to make sure that we're reading this, every vote. I'm not going to vote for that. And I'm going to make sure, while I might be the only dissenting vote, I'm going to put it on the record that this is not good enough, and I'm always going to push us to say, okay, we're doing good things, but we need to be doing best things. And I think that's, again, as a representative, that is my duty, right? Not just to win every vote or just put my name on legislation, but be that voice that's always nudging us further and further.
Right. Thank you. And this is one of our last questions about environmental deals from Alexis.
Yes. So my next question is just, a general question about something that's a hot topic, definitely in America and Congress, and is a hot topic this election season. Do you support the Green New Deal?
Yes. I think, what it is, from the environmental perspective, yes. That's the type of thing, that we need right now when in terms of economic, like the jobs are going to be there in terms of changing our approach to education, and the types of job training and the skills that we need, the society of people that we need to produce skill-wise. The same kind of idea with fintech, right? Like we have all these jobs, these demands for it. They could be fulfilled greater if we're dedicated to this. I think it's really important. I mean, it's something that I've been kind of saying with COVID, how do we pivot now? We can't try to keep doing the same thing. Like the recovery to me isn't figuring out how to get back to where we were, because we're not going to get back. That's not the point of life. That's not the point of America. It's achieving our potential. So in figuring out how we get out of here, we need New Deal type stuff where you're doing public works, right? If for instance, digital divide, if you're able to do that, hardwire, connect everybody, do it in a way where you're also, in that same sense, burying all the lines, all the electrical lines. So, you create less energy loss, you're creating less impact on the environment, because of the, the scarring of the earth because of all these lines, how can you take advantage of, when you dig a hole, only moving that dirt once, to do it in a way that is more sustainable, when we're dealing with COVID, a big thing is, how do we make sure that people are healthy? And we know the environment has a big deal to that. And so how do you think about this a little differently, right? If you're thinking about how do you, fill food deserts, right? Well, maybe it's not just building a new supermarket, right? Maybe it's reclaiming green space and providing community gardens or gardens on every block. And how do we get communities to work together and to be more environmentally aware and engaged? But so I look to that from the big ideas of transitioning from fossil fuels all the way down to the prescribed local ideas. It's just what's needed, and that's the only way I've ever. Even I grew up in New York City, but I went to a school that always public school that always, focused on environmental issues. I don't know. It's just intuitive to me,
Thank you for your honesty. You didn't give us a political answer. We appreciate that. And that actually leads into our next question from Michelle.
Okay. So what changes have you seen in the economic welfare of marginalized communities as a result of COVID-19? And as a member of the Economic Development Committee, what are you doing to uplift the stories and experiences of those in the communities that have been impacted the most?
Well, I am not part of the Economic Development Committee, but I always participate. I do try to, again, I try to bring the voices that I represent. Sorry, hold on. Somebody, sorry, I got a phone call, and I don't, maybe y'all can help me. Every time my phone rings, my laptop reacts. And it's some Apple thing that, I don't know, it rings on everything. So I don't know, it shuts me down. But I always try to bring those voices proximate, to the conversation. Again, I think, it is part of my duty. The reason why I was elected is that if I'm not there, there are going to be certain voices that don't get represented. I still live paycheck to paycheck, right? I'm a union member. I work in entertainment production. I'm a stagehand. I know, I know I'm not a retired person with a pension. that's finished a career. I work 3 jobs myself. I'm a single father of 3 children. So it's my duty to be as present in whatever meeting as possible. But there's no doubt that there are inequities with COVID, right? If the people that keep their jobs are folks that work in offices, that can work from home, but if you're a server, there's nobody to serve, if you're a cab driver, there's nobody around, this is why we need a structural pivot from what we're doing. And it's not sufficient just to, just figure out from a city perspective. We don't have the capability of just giving people checks. We just don't, we just don't. We're funded, our government is funded by sales tax and property tax, right? So if people aren't buying things, if people aren't going to the restaurants and buying things, then we're not getting the sales tax either. There's going to be a diminishing return over time, right? We don't get money off of income taxes. I don't get to tax computers, yes, but I don't get to tax. Well, but I don't get to tax a special tax on a computer or a certain level of vehicle, right? It's just one level. But I think, again, and I hate to be a broken record, this idea about America is our potential, is what we can become. And that's how we need to think. It's not, what business was. There's a lot of potential here to do things differently, right? If we commit to it. And I do think government can be a catalyst, once again, to doing this. If we say that we're going to commit to it, if we're going to invest in things, again, for instance, the digital divide, right? I think this is a perfect example. There's a need. There are not enough people that have, when you bridge the digital divide, you have to get people Wi-Fi or broadband to where they're at. You have to get them devices, and then you have to get training on those devices. Those are jobs, right? If we commit to bridging that digital divide, those are jobs, and that people that are out of work can be retrained for, people in my industry are suffering right now. I'm a stagehand, so I build, concerts, stages, lights, camera, action, theater shows. My folks are the first ones out of work. I'm a cameraman for the Charlotte Hornets. My folks are the first people out of work and the last to come back. And so we got to figure out a way. Is there a way to retrain us? Is there a way to do things different? And again, if we're willing to take some leaps and bounds from a government standpoint, then businesses should and will follow.
Thank you. I just want to clarify. So when you said that the Charlotte City Council is funded by sales tax, and because of a lack of consumption, the city council can't give out that much aid to marginalized communities, it kind of represents a catch-22, correct? Like the fact that because of COVID-19.
Well, let me clarify something real quick. I would say that there's diminishing return. So we don't have the same type of funds coming in like a federal government. So we do have funds coming in. We're getting CARES funding that we are able to provide some direct aid for rental. But when you talk about the need, it is nowhere near our capacity. Our funding capacity is nowhere near the need that is felt citywide. Sorry.
That's okay. I just yeah.
All right, well, that was our last question. So thank you, Councilman Winston. Would you like to say a few words to wrap us up? Anything you need volunteers for? Any projects you're working on?
Well, yeah, I would always love to support. You go to votebraxton.com and you can register there to kind of stay up in touch with my campaign and the work that I'm doing outside. Because again, it's good to understand the difference between work that happens in government versus stuff that, for instance, when I was getting that budget the defunding portion out, it was political. It was not a piece of policy yet. So I had to get support from it. So that information was coming from my campaign account, right? That wouldn't be something that the city was going to support before there was a vote on it, right? So I would say, follow me there. Follow other candidates. Get smart about these candidates now. Yes, pay attention. If you are going to be 18 before November 3rd, go ahead and register. But don't just pay attention to what's happening on the federal level. This is one of those elections where you have federal, state, and local. So you're going to have your county commissioners. Your county commissioners are the ones that do fund CMS, and they make decisions there. So that would be pretty proximate to you. Learn about the bonds that are on the ballot. The city will have bonds on the ballot, but we'll be asking for you to allow us to take debt out to fund affordable housing and infrastructure spending. Get smart about all those things, but like you said at the beginning, all y'all organize. Know that you can't be Superman, right? You can't do everything. But the way I kind of found my way into this is that, I did a lot of research. There was a picture that was taken of me with my fist up in front of some police, and it was very inspirational. It was like, I love it. It's a great picture. Even if it wasn't me, I think it's a dope picture. But I knew that I didn't want people just to follow an image, right? So I had to figure out what was I doing? What was I going to give to them? And I did a lot of soul searching. I did a lot of reading, and I learned about this idea of civic virtue, this Greek term of arete, the willingness to do some uncomfortable tasks for the greater good, to do that thing that you are blessed to do. It might not be the thing that you want to do, but we all have something that we do well. And like I said, I'm not a great organizer. I'm not necessarily great at I don't know, putting out campaign schemes and things like that. But I could get to a table and find common ground. So, and that's what I saw, a representative was needed. But we need everybody to not everybody has to run for office. Not everybody has to run an organization. You don't even have to be part of an organization. We need people just to be good parents, to be good doctors, to be good painters. We need whatever it is that you do well. And again, it might not be that thing that makes you the most money or the career that you want to go into, but when you recognize that thing you do well, man, figure out how to amplify that and maximize it, because you need it in your life, and more than that, we need you to do it. All right.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something. So before the pandemic hit, I was part of the core group of weekly strikers outside the government center on Fridays. Yeah, and I just wanted to thank you, because we can tell which politicians genuinely care about us and the issues, and which ones take the initiative to connect with the youth and with the climate organizations and the strikers outside. So I just wanted to thank you.
Thank you. So I this might be a real politician's issue, but but I don't want to be a politician. I want to be a leader in government. I think politics is, again, there's a place for it. When I'm running for office, I need to explain to you what my politics are, what my approach will be. But to me, a politician, they only care about their position, and they're only going to surround themselves with people that believe in their position. They're going to box everybody else out. So if you ever find me that I am becoming a politician, y'all call me on it, because I definitely want pats on the back, but I want to be pulled by the ear too. So y'all let me know if y'all see that. All right, Jacqueline?
Well, thank you so much to everyone for coming, especially you, Councilman Winston. This was great. So thank you so much for your input. Thank you everyone for coming, and we will see you later. Bye.
Keep it up, y'all. Keep it up. Hey, keep these folks coming into your group and holding us accountable, all right?
Right.
Okay. Bye. Good luck with the school year.
Thanks.
Thank you.